Welcome to In the Ven Zone with Christine McKay, where we get candid about what it takes to negotiate effectively. You'll learn from the challenges and successes of entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. We help you change the nature of your negotiations and get more from every deal you do.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of In the Ven Zone, where we help you, the small and mid-sized business, elevate your negotiation skills. And we do that by bringing fantastic, amazing, interesting guests. And as always, I'm so excited about my guest today. My guest today is Anita Darden Gardyne, and she is the CEO and the chairman of Oneva, and she has this amazing partnership with Microsoft, providing services to their employees. She has won tons of awards, including the Mesa Award from UC Berkeley. And I'm just like so excited because I just love what she's doing in the market. And I think we're going to learn a lot, especially because, we hear a lot. And right now, there's just a huge article that came out. I think it was just recently about how venture funding is so dried up for women and especially for women of color. And so I love Anita's story because she's done some interesting things in order to fund her business. And so we're going to talk a little bit about those negotiations and what she's experienced as she has tried to take her technology-based business and grow it in the absence of having venture capital access. So Anita, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here, Christine. Thank you for the opportunity to share. And you pulled out an award I got in 1979 was the first time I received Mesa Student of the Year for Math, Engineering, Science Achievement from Kennedy High School in Richmond, California. So I won that award in 1980, the year I graduated from high school. So now everybody knows my expiration date and my age. And I am thrilled to be a product of pipeline programs like Mesa, designed to create founders like me.
That's amazing. So tell us more about your journey and tell us more about Oneva. I'm so excited to hear about share all of the things you're doing.
Oh, you are so kind. So for me, my journey began, as you can hear, in Richmond, California, public school kid. And I was able to benefit from pipeline programs that targeted students who look like me, who were okay in school, but showed attributes and interest in STEAM, what we call STEAM today. So I participated in a program called Mesa. I participated in a program called the Professional Development Program through UC Berkeley, which was located near my home. So I had the treasure of starting at Berkeley at 15 through those programs. And by the time I left Berkeley 10 years later, I had a bachelor's with double majors in economics in the Black community, and MBA. My husband, who had a bachelor's of science in computer science and electrical engineering. And I worked my way through school as an engineer. I literally graduated from high school on a Friday, and Monday I started at AT&T's engineering office as an intern, thanks to that Mesa program. I worked summers at AT&T, and then I transitioned to Bank of America's telecom department. They offered me a full-time job while I went to school and eventually took that. So I worked my way through school. I was coding back in the early 80s. I was managing the deployment of the creation of the system so that the bank could issue telephone bills. The AT&T had broken up at that time, and it was the first time large corporations could build their own telecommunications IT infrastructure. So that's what I got to do. And taking that skill set, transitioning 10 years at Cal, I entered AT&T's executive training program in 1988, right out of Haas. There were 10 of us. I was the only one who was not, arguably, probably a straight white male. And I was blessed through that experience to just have an amazing career at AT&T, to be promoted fairly quickly into senior management. First in a technology role where I worked with Bell Labs to build the native language system so that they could provision broadband. So built that upfront system and then worked internally to create a couple downstream systems as the project manager in that effort, and then to build the marketing infrastructure. So AT&T moved me into senior finance roles. I left and went to companies like Levi Strauss. I was at Seagate and left my career in 2000 as a CFO. It's what's now called Seagate, with a $3.5 billion business, because my husband's company was acquired for $3.25 billion. So we have been blessed to see my husband experience 3 exits. He does not look like me. And we're blessed that even his team, that founder who had that $3.25 billion exit in his 20s, is one of my investors. So because of those decades I spent in Silicon Valley, working my way through from engineer to executive, I had access to a network and a set of resources that a lot of female may not have. So I've been able to tap into that network. As you can imagine, when you've been married for 35 years, his corporate network is my corporate network. We started out together, and some of those friends, like Danny Allen, is still out at SAP, folks we've grown up with since the 1980s, when you first saw women enter the technology space. And the younger audience may not be aware that certainly there was some activity in Silicon Valley, but the telecommunications industry is where so much technology sprang from. You have a lot of old guys like us who came out of that space, who just found their way into a number of other software and other companies we see today. So it's through those networks that we established through B schools, that we establish in our careers, that I've learned to lean on to become the 11th Black female in U.S. history to raise $1 million. A milestone I hit, many years ago, but that's a telling statement. At this point, we maybe we're approaching 100, which is awesome. But when you think about $1 million and what it takes to launch a business, to scale a VC investable business, it's not a very large number. So clearly, lots of room to grow there, and lots of opportunity for folks to step into those voids right now.
Right. We actually have a little bit of a common background. I started my professional career at Bell Atlantic after AT&T broke up, and it was Bell Atlantic where I started, which for everybody who doesn't know Bell Atlantic, it's now Verizon, because Bell Atlantic and NYNEX merged many years ago. But I started out doing international mergers and acquisitions for them. So we both came up in the telecom industry.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was. But one of the things I love in your bio, which I almost never read somebody's bio, but you actually say that you have 2 homes, one with your husband and one with your mom. And that kind of started this crisis of care situation is really, so you had this really amazing career, definitely a pioneer in the things that you do. I mean, when you sit and say that you were doing coding in the 80s, and people are listening, may not see you. So Anita is a gorgeous Black woman who's just like got her stuff together. And so you don't see women of color coding very much today. And so it's still a small number of women in that field, let alone women of color. And so for you, you were pioneering that space in the early 1980s. That's just, I mean, the things I know, for me, the things that I saw in the telecommunication industry would shock people today. So many things. I'm sure you had similar experiences, that if things happened like they did when we were coming up, man, people would not be employed.
Yes.
It would be very different.
Way before Me Too.
Yeah.
Amongst other things. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So tell us, how did you go from being in this tech space and in telecom and Seagate and incredible companies, and then what motivated you as your mom was aging to start Oneva? Tell us more about Oneva and that story.
For me, they reached a point where I was able to think about a return to that career. I mentioned I left as a CFO. It was called Quantum, now Seagate. I had a $3.5 billion business. I also had a stillbirth, and family became much more important to me at 38. So I was able to stay home, have our son, who was then 8, now he's an old guy, have a second child, be mom, what I wanted to do. As that child entered school and I started to reimagine myself returning to a full-time career, Like many women in this place, I started to have responsibility for my mom's care, who was showing some, age, impacts from age, and my daughter. Now, because I had my daughter at 41 and my mom gave birth to me at 29, they're 69 years apart, if my math is right. So when my child's 7, right, mom's 75, and you start to see, or in that age group where you start to notice things. So as I started to think about a return to work, I had to think about who's going to be here to help get mom to that grocery store, to that doctor's appointment. Dad, we didn't know, was the one who was actually sick and dying, and died first. So we were focused on mom's care, and then had to rush in and provide that care for dad through his transition in 2015. And we, with using our Oneva 1.0, our family of 4, my mom and several Oneva pros from the platform, along with hospice nurses, were able to care for my dad through his death at home. And those caregivers were able to earn living rates. It was at an affordable rate. And it was what every family strives for, right? This is important to my mom and their dad, that they could live in their homes as long as they could, and ultimately die in those homes, because it's affordable. So we absolutely proved that model with the 1.0 version of Oneva. And for me, realizing that return to work meant caring for parents as well as my child, I went out and looked at what was available in the market, and I was shocked. I was shocked even to see companies that had care in their title did not know the identity of who was on the platform. And as a CEO, as a chairman, one of our distinctive competitive advantages is that we're a marketplace where we know the identity of who the caregiver is. Distinctive competitive advantage. Another is that we comply with all laws for that worker to provide the care services that the state that we operate in says we have to operate with. We believe that being white hat and complying with all those rules and regulations is helpful not only to that corporations like Microsoft, which wants to provide that care to employees. They want to be able to intervene. They want to be able to bring that support, but they've also got to do it in a way where there's no risk created for them. And so I needed a solution, and when I went out, I couldn't find it. So I decided to build my own. And we are a regulated care marketplace. We proved it can be done. And as you would imagine, you get lots of doors closed in front of you. Every vendor, let's ignore the package God chose to put me in. You close the door, you look for the window closes, you look for the seam under the door, that's closed. You go, is there an ant in the room, a mouse, is there a hole? So that's how you solve the problem, which was your question. How do you solve that? You keep looking for different solutions and alternatives, and hopefully if you've built strong, solid relationships through win-win negotiation, you're going to have a village of folks that you can turn to, and they'll intervene on your behalf. When there's that shared vision, shared values, all that can be created with a win-win focus and a really a view of the world and of the project and the team of abundance. We sell in-home care, somebody to come help a family with mom, dad. I have autistic niece and 2 nephews who are in their 40s. I've experienced that as well. So when we talk about care and what we built, it's the most expansive view of care that you would need. I need one place that I would go to provide care for a special needs person, as well as for an elder. And I don't have to meet that state standard. And every family is different. Your needs may be different than, an employee at San Mateo Credit Union or an employee at Chevron Systems. It's going to vary. You just need one place to go where you should have confidence that there's trusted care that complies with laws. On the other side of that transaction, we just made it, 11 clicks, simple, easy, fast, and introduce a video. But again, we just think relationships are key. Trust is key. You want to know before they even show up who's coming. I never want to look for the badge here. I'm always going to look, are you really PG&E, right? Are you really my telephone operator person? With this video, I know who you are. I don't need to rely on somebody who maybe, took a t-shirt from a basket at a laundromat that shows up at my door. So we really focus around trust and small circles. So that's what my family does. That's how we lived. And so we used ourselves to model to build the tech around.
That's awesome. And how,
That's
so
nuts.
I think that's amazing. Because I mean, I'm actually kind of at a loss for words, which, the audience is going, how is that possible? Christine's never at a loss
It's
for
something never done before. Well, we're the old guys. When we went out in the market, we launched here in a park in Oakland, California with no tech. We just had a website. We had some folks come out, bring animals from East Bay Vivarium, the lizards, the snakes, the exotics. Kids showed up, parents showed up. We had popcorn and snow cones that, the whole day cost us $400. We had parents show up. We set out our pricing and et cetera. And we had demand. We had market validation. I had a mom spend about 2 hours with me explaining what she could afford to pay for the care and how important it was for her. And again, that relationship with Microsoft, the notion that a corporation has a role in helping to subsidize care so that its employees can find work-life balance. Before COVID, we all know COVID just made it on steroids. And especially for us, just women, lots of men out there providing care too. So we want to always include men and our men allies. But care is also viewed as a female issue. So from a VC perspective, back to your earlier conversation, I've had many men say Craigslist solved this, right? Craigslist has solved the problem of care. And they've said to me, I just hand my wife the credit card. She goes on Craigslist and finds another caregiver, and there's somebody in the home. And that's an alternative. But, when we think about who are those VCs who are making those investment decisions, some of them just aren't connected into the everyday challenges that I knew I faced as an executive, right? As someone who wanted to return to an executive career, and as someone who wanted to continue to be the most senior Black executive at Quantum, now CA. And they lost that in 2000, right? Every corporation that I've been at has lost that because of care. And at the end of the day, smart companies, caring companies like Microsoft, Harvard study called the Caring Company that's been issued speaks to this topic. So we're excited that we were able to go from talented employee users, right, here in a park saying, I need this is what I need, this is what I can pay. And thanks to an introduction by Reverend Jesse Jackson to executives at Microsoft, fast forward 7 years, and we continue to work with Fred Teal, now the Vice President of Benefits at Microsoft, and building this technology platform with him and his guidance. One, just to have the validation of a corporation of the size, scope, scale called Microsoft that validates your business model is fantastic. When they did see that 1.0 version that we had, we've gone a little bit past that front end and had first version of the interface. A customer would interact with an employee customer, not a caregiver customer, not an enterprise customer, but the actual employee customer would use. And we ended up winning Best Startup Silicon Valley. And that's when Intel noticed and asked if we would make an enterprise grade version, GDPR compliant version of this technology platform. So again, corporations are asking for solutions. This is in 2015. Asking for solutions to how can we bring trusted care to our employees back then. We, of course, ran straight to Fred at Microsoft and worked with him and his team to build Oneva 1.0. And we took it out and we used it with 3,000 Microsoft employees here in Silicon Valley in 2017. And we used that 1.0 version of the platform not only to support a number of Microsoft employees, but as you can hear, my own family and my dad through his death, and ultimately validated the business model. You can absolutely die in your own home at about $30 an hour, with that care to make sure that, while people are moving through the home, right? My dad's always clean shirts on, beds, bed's always clean and nice. There's cold water in the fridge. He passed away in early September, and all those things that matter. And ultimately, even before COVID, when we saw the decimation of so many elder facilities, Families wanted their elders in their home. So we just feel really blessed that we have a technology stack available and is scaling nationally in this moment need, because it truly is, it's a global need. And what we got here in this country, we can repeat and imagine Japan, Finland, Germany, where the number of elders as a percent of population is growing.
Right. Yeah. Wow. And one of the things that I love about what you do is because you're not a massive business, right? So, and yet you're working with, and I talk a lot about David and Goliath negotiation and, working with a Microsoft, negotiating with an Intel, but as a small business, negotiating with these organizations, what are some of the things that you've learned in that process? Because there's just there are a lot of challenges for many smaller businesses when they're negotiating with those big organizations. What are some of the things that you've learned in your experience?
Thank you for that. I love that question. The first thing I start with is gratitude. Fred Thiel has a billion pieces of sand in front of him every day. You know how many entrepreneurs would love to get a call, an email, a note from Fred that offers any guidance whatsoever? So again, I approach every relationship with gratitude and with a feeling of abundance. More than enough here for all of us to be successful. It's not me against you. This is a win-win. And how can we grow together? How can we grow collaboratively? So we have to make that known in every interaction from the gate as a part of building that vision, that village, executing the vision, and then I have to live it. So I start with gratitude, certainly appreciation. At the same time, I also have a clear set of objectives. We designed our business and our exit before we launched. We can't say it's going to be this, that it's going to exactly end on, this date and this time, and it's going to look like this. But we have plans for an exit. So awesome to have a great partner like Microsoft emerge early on when you're building a technology stack that you want to extend to a global population. Our customers, Microsoft, operates beyond Silicon Valley, operates beyond the 70,000 in Redmond, and they're in Ireland, they're in Asia. Our technology stack has to support every enterprise. Right. And enterprise has its own culture. So when I'm in that negotiation with each company, I have to think about their culture. In the company, it's egalitarian. It wants everybody to start off at the same day, at the same time with everything. And we love that. That just says we've got to be able to launch and support them globally on day one. And we can do that with our technology, designed for that. Microsoft, you can hear, comfortable with a regional approach. Let's start in Silicon Valley. Let's start with that 1.0. Let's build it. We learned a whole lot. When we showed that 1.0 is when we won TechCrunch Silver. So I'm excited about that. Not many folks who do look like me have that privilege. Out of that, insurance companies found us. So we have also amended our platform so that great insurance companies like Acrisure and our partners at Police Insurance, who distribute Oneva as an insurance product to its employee benefits customers, we meet their needs in a unique way. So again, my partners that I work with, Michelle Montoya at Police, we approach it from abundance. We know there's a large market. Both of our companies will grow. She has insurance expertise and she mentors me. I show her gratitude. We have to negotiate a contract and commissions and my obligations to onboard customers to ensure customer satisfaction so that her customers and our customers are all equally satisfied and have repeat joyful experiences. A lot of trust she's putting in me, a lot of trust Microsoft's putting into me. So as I go into those negotiations, I have to proactively respond to them with assurances that that trust is well placed and earned. They don't have to ask me questions about insurances, cybersecurity insurance, as a simple example from everywhere. But given a recent pipeline situation, right, many of us are probably saying it's a good thing to have. they have confidence in me as a former corporate executive to know we have those things in place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, speaks to why is that company choosing to work with me? Now that I know the customer and I'm showing gratitude, I know their culture. I'm adapting my negotiation and my expected outcome based on that particular company who's sitting across from me. Right?
Mm.
And I'm gonna want to understand, I have my needs as well. I'm gonna give them the trust and confidence they need. Because you're right, I am a small business. And we're talking to, of the Fortune 20, probably 15 of them. And we're a tiny, tiny company. And so absolutely you have to go into that conversation for us saying, this is what I can bring to you. Nobody else can.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also certified as a minority owned business, soon to be women owned business.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who are minorities or women or LGBTQ or veterans, or I hate to say the word disabled, but those of you who can get a certification, a designation as inclusive, do it. Companies get bonus points to do business with us.
Mm-hmm.
If they're regulated by the Public Utilities Commission here in California and in most states, they are required by law to spend a certain amount of dollars with these inclusively owned firms. So again, a tip for those founders who want to grow business and you want to get in the door of Microsoft and Intel, get those certifications if you can. Each company has supplier diversity teams.
Mm-hmm.
They inside the finance department where contracts are written.
Right.
Department I want to be friends with in any organization. I need my buyer. Fred Teal, VP Benefits, is my buyer at Microsoft. But I also want to make sure that the folks in procurement who write that contract know about me, have great relationships with me. When they brought in the IT security manual in 2015, I think it looked like this.
meaning it was like 2 feet thick for those who can't see Anita's hands.
and then they dropped it on the table and said, okay, those are your standards. And
Yep.
Bo Pitzker, our security guy, and Bob and I, our co-founder, we all looked at each other and went, well, it took us a number of years. We're still here and we're ready to go and we're ready to scale. So again, for those founders, know your audience, have that conversation early on, your expectations and standards.
Yep.
When the book got dropped on us in 2015, we're sitting it took us till 2020, not only to be able to meet the enterprise grade GDPR compliance standard, but we have 3 customers we sell to. I sell to the employee customer who has their own unique native app, plus always an 800 number.
Mm-hmm.
The caregiver is also our customer.
Mm-hmm.
We have lots of other choices and other places to work. So they also have their own app and they get a free video, a marketing video, so that they can win clients. And of course, no cost. We actually encourage them to join. We pay them to show their verified COVID vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a customer, we think that might help you make a more informed choice as to which caregiver you want in your home. So on our platform, you can choose based on many attributes, knowing they always comply with the law. Again, I simply share all this with you to say, when you go into those conversations, when you go into those negotiations, just be clear about who your customer sets are. We've got 3. HR and enterprise, they're going to want to see how much care is being used. Are folks happy? Are they using pet care, dog, elder care? They're going to want to see some things. So again, we had to bill for 3 customers, and we uniquely got requirements from each operation and rebuilt until we met a certain standard.
Well, I want to just kind of highlight some things, and because you've talked a lot about a lot of different things, and I just want to make sure that everybody in the audience kind of picks up on some of this stuff, because you guys have heard me talk about some of these things many times before, but the way that Anita is talking about it, I love it, because a lot of my story, going from homeless to Harvard and beyond. And I talk a lot when I'm speaking on stage. I talk a lot about how a lot of small business owners remind me when I meet them of the women and the people I met when I first walked into a welfare office. And they get so sucked into this scarcity concept. They start negotiating from these positions of scarcity. I have a client right now that I'm dissolving a partnership on their behalf, and one of the parties, I mean, she was clearly scared about something, but she just nearly destroyed the relationship because she was focused so much on scarcity and wasn't able to take a step back and think from a position of abundance, right? To be able to negotiate from a position of abundance. And I love what you said, Anita, about you go into your negotiations with gratitude. And, for everybody who's listening, go check out the show notes at ven.zone. We'll have the full transcript of this conversation, and I'm going to put links into a whole lot of things because Anita's mentioned a bunch of things in there. But we have a program called Ven Masters that we've launched. And one of the things we talk about, and there's a video on our programs page about it, is how so many people go into negotiation. One, they're afraid of being judged. So they don't ask for what they want. So one of the things other things you talked about was you clearly know what your objectives are and what your exit strategy is. You knew it before you launched the business. And so when you negotiate, you know what those guardrails are, those riverbanks, right? You know what that is. And knowing those riverbanks gives you so much flexibility to kind of go in the flow of the negotiation, to be creative, because all the water's in the banks. And so all the value's in the banks, right? And to discover that. And so
that's my power. That's my power.
It's amazing. Exactly. That is exactly right. And small businesses often think they don't have power. But you do have power. You absolutely have power, unless you voluntarily choose to acquiesce it. That's the only time you do not have power and leverage. I don't care if you're negotiating with Microsoft, Boeing, Walmart, Apple, British Telecom. I don't care who you're negotiating with, right? If you are a small business and they are talking to you about buying a product or service from you, you have power. Otherwise, you wouldn't be at the table. At all. They would not be talking to you at all. And so abundance, starting from a position of abundance, being grateful, showing gratitude, recognizing what you have, going in, being very clear about what your objectives are, what your exit is, and defining what your riverbanks look like. And then being flexible was the other thing you talked about. Being flexible, knowing that each customer has different requirements. You're selling the same thing to every one of your customers, right? Regardless of which customer set it is, whether it's the employee customer, the caregivers, or the companies that you have as clients, right? Mm-hmm. You have all three of those different sets. But when you're sitting and you're selling your services to corporations, you're selling the same services. But what matters to each of them is so different. And I recently spoke at an event, and this woman came up to me afterward and she said, "Oh my God, Christine," and she's about the same age we are. And she said, "Oh my God, Christine," she goes, "I just learned from you. The thing that I learned the most is that I have to start thinking about my counterpart." And so many of us, Hollywood teaches us not to do that. Hostage negotiators, it's a winner take all. Attorneys, you get paid, you get paid to win. But successful business negotiations aren't about winning. It's about building that relationship. And as I often say, negotiation is just a conversation about a relationship. And you cannot win a relationship, but you can get more value out of it. And that's what Anita's talking about, finding ways to get more value out of those relationships. And I just think that was really, really powerful. I just wanted to kind of break down some of the things that I heard you talk about.
I love how you shared that. I got to go find that masterclass. That's what I need. and again, to tie this back to your question about VCs and VCs who, what do you do when a VC won't write a check? You're blessed to have Fred Till, now Vice President of Benefits at Microsoft, as your mentor and your coach. I'm blessed to have Burton Goldfield, CEO at TriNet, as a mentor and
great company.
2015 as well. So when we signed a deal with the investment bankers, it was Burton Goldfield who called me in the middle of the day and said, this is what you watch for, this is what you do. So when you don't have a VC, I've got something better than a VC. I've got two mentors, one guiding one of the largest companies in the world of benefits, and the other heading up a $5 billion growing enterprise benefits company. So it's back to that network. It's meeting folks, being able to capture their attention because they have the billions of grains of sand on the beach to choose from. So it's my obligation to attract that attention and retain it and use it to grow both of our businesses. So as you talked about, win-win. It's a win-win situation. And as an entrepreneur, this is also my third startup. My second startup, if I can spend a moment on it, was called What's Next. I would have made the most money by selling the domain name, which I should have. But it was an early marketplace for folks, an early version of Career Builder, let's say in the 90s. And we found folks loved our service, our resume writing, our career help. They just wouldn't pay us and it wasn't that they didn't want to, they were between jobs. The third business, Oneva, we focused on a market in which people would actually pay us. And we also focused on a $3 trillion market.
Right.
Going into with global care. I share that again with you in the audience of entrepreneurs and business owners to say, as we set up our businesses, that power that I have, that flexibility that I have, that ability to stand out as a grain of the sand on the beach is also because we bring something that's unique that nobody else has. If you do, if you view yourself as a printer or IT sourcing, there are lots of IT sourcing companies that exist. Still differentiate yourself in that conversation. Why you, Christine? Why are you in the chair with Fred and not the other 999,000 folks who could be? So go into that conversation. Always bring that special sauce. Why am I in the room and not those other people banging on the door to displace me? Because we all have to remember, as small business owners, once we get that big meeting, there are 999,000 other folks beating on the door to shove us out of the chair, and they may have something newer and better, technology, whatever, right? So we got to earn that place, and then once we get in that chair, keep it.
Well, that reminds me of one of the episodes, one of my earlier episodes with Akil Abdullah, who was the first Black Olympic rower, and he rowed in the Athens Olympics. And he negotiated with his coach to take, when he was in Olympic training, to take a month off so he could go play saxophone with a band, right? And if you think that an Olympic rower or anybody who's on the Olympic team doesn't have hundreds of people fighting at their heels to try to get them to unseated off the team, I mean, it took some guts for him to put that request in and to negotiate for it. But that's the same thing as with a small business, right? When you have that big account, right? There are a couple of things you talk about. One is having the right big account, right? So not every big business is the right customer for you, right? Not everyone. And so, a lot of times people will try, they don't care. It's like, oh, I need whatever big company I can get. And I saw this a lot when I was working in Silicon Valley. And it was actually one of the reasons why I launched Venn Negotiation, because I'd see big companies slide a contract across the table and say, we don't negotiate with companies like your size. And I go, that's not the game we're playing. We're not playing that game, right? And so, and we'd negotiate, and I did that very successfully. But I launched Venn Negotiation because I saw those big companies devouring smaller businesses who didn't have clarity in what they wanted, who went in with a scarcity mentality, and it was like, I'm going to get them, right? And they go into most of us, and research shows this, most of us go into negotiation automatically thinking that our counterpart is out to get us, that we're going to, it's either we screw them first or they screw us, right?
Wow.
And that's what research shows, that the majority of people go into negotiation with that mentality, which you and I don't do that mentality, right? I go in assuming that they're 100% trustworthy and that they have my best interest in mind, the same as I have their best interest in mind. I respect them. I want them to make a healthy margin. I want them to be successful. If they're a customer or a supplier, it doesn't matter, because I need them to be successful. But my success, by entering into an agreement with them, my success is inherently tied to their success.
Absolutely.
No matter the size differential. And so
Absolutely.
that's the other thing you were talking about.
No, you captured it perfectly. Absolutely. Absolutely. We recently were in conversation with a company about, that would be a supplier, potential investor, different ways to collaborate and scale up. As we scale nationally, we need providers in the cities we're going to. We're looking for folks in Seattle. We're looking for folks in LA. And, this particular vendor, at a point in our conversation, it was quite apparent that they misrepresented themselves. And they really wanted to be a supplier. And it's unfortunate. We simply cannot do business with them because they misrepresented themselves going into that conversation. If they'd just been open and honest and disclosed, it would have easy peasy, great conversation. I would also add, always negotiate. You and I learned from those build days, payment terms, for example, corporations, how quickly they pay small businesses is a factor. As small business owners, if we aren't negotiating those terms, you can have a great contract and be cash broken out of business.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're not negotiating, as Christine has shared, you really got to get into that mindset, that mentality of doing so, because that's where our power sits. It's within the four borders of that contract, because if it doesn't exist in these pages, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't exist. Whatever words may have exchanged, so back to that negotiation, ensuring your needs are met, it means ensuring you have the cash to pay employees. Can't do that unless you do better than net 90 days or whatever, as an example of something, corporate agreement that I would negotiate if I were in that position. That would be one. We're blessed at Oneva that if a corporation wants to subsidize, they have to pay up front, right, the month in advance for that customer to get care at a discounted rate, because the caregiver's got to get paid. Ultimately, we're technology. It's the caregiver who's got to get paid. Our goal is to do it as close to zero cost as we can get. Come at some point. Wouldn't it be great if Oneva was free? Right? To anybody, you could just get a qualified caregiver, see a great video, know what their credentials are, and it costs you nothing. That would be my goal, right? So that everyone can have it, whether you're in Finland, the folks who asked us since 2015 are here. That's what I would love to see happen. We just want to see families get access to the care that they need, so that every family can have the treasure of what we had. And it's a horrible thing to say, but it was being able to be there with my father and when he passed away, and we could afford to do it. At that time in 2017, we were paying about $25 a day. Caregiver was earning about 18 an hour. Oneva's earning its margin, and everybody was happy, right? And my dad had to be at home. That is all we wanted to do, is to make every family available to connect to the trusted caregivers, whether you have autism in your family, whether you just need help with a messy house, and our four-legged friends, right? So we just want to see families get the care they need. We want to see men and women be able to live their best lives. I had a great career. I loved my career. I wanted to be a mom too, and I got to be a mom too. But so many of us, our pay gets impacted because of that, right? As a woman and executive, when we leave the workforce, it impacts our ability to get to that C-suite. It impacts our pay. So we need to solve for that. Back to our initial question, why are we not seeing VCs invest in women? Why are they not investing in people who don't look like them? Well, we need to show them some success models, but we also need to get women and our male allies who are off providing the care and maybe not, and because of that being denied access in the suites. I mean, how many of us honestly right now would go to our, I'm a VP at corporation XYZ. Am I going to go to my boss and say, hey, I'm having real care challenges at home? My kid literally is in the other room doing a Zoom today, by the way, for school. Tomorrow she'll be at rural school, and the next, that's what it's like to be a parent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to work. We need help.
Yeah.
So we really just want to see that help made available. And when you help families with care, you generally speaking are helping women. And when you lift women, you lift communities.
Mm.
When you lift women, right, we start to make changes in those C-suites. And our male allies providing that care, they're in the same boat we are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well,
So,
I've loved this conversation, Anita. I love what you are doing in the market. I think it's so important. It's important to your most recent term, to community. It's really about elevating community. How do people find you?
Anita at Oneva.com. There. Certainly you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Anita Gardyne, and we are excited to meet with like-minded folks who are interested in having our service in their state, folks interested in joining as caregivers. And we're always excited to support employee customers here in California from great companies like Microsoft, San Mateo Credit Union, Felice Insurance, and others. So please just reach out to us and let's connect you to the care that you need to be successful in this moment. So thank you, Christine, for the opportunity. I love what you do. This is a very needed class and topic. So you are going to be hearing from me, young lady, in Exploring Masterclass. I wish I knew you had existed. I paid a consultant to get some of this learning. The notion of going into a meeting with a clear expectation of what you want before you enter the meeting. This young lady, Christine, is sharing this with you all for free, audience. I had to pay for that. I hope you are taking advantage, and learning from what she's sharing, because you are clearly dropping lots of great knowledge. And I'm going to share with you feedback that I get from my teammates, with not just Fred or Burton, but folks like Chris Ye, the author of Blitzscaling, who's my right hand, who gives me my access to the Harvard network and the Stanford network. Folks like Chris are engaged and involved and active with me for all the same reasons, because we approach it with abundance. Mm-hmm. And to have him since 2015 to build the tech, now that we're blitzscaling, that speaks to those relationships. And all the tools that you shared, what did it take for me to get Chris Ye's attention? First, it took a lot of phone calls, a lot of reaching out, because he gets lots of inbound input. I can imagine Fred does. I can imagine Burton does. They were looking for resiliency and tenacity. So to your founders, if you're going, why aren't they calling back? It's a test. It's a test. Sometimes it's a signal. You as the entrepreneur, but it's a function again. What are you communicating in those messages, even in those no responses? I must have been communicating something to Chris Ye in those 3 to 4 months it took to get a response to a sit-down meeting at our attorney's office at Wilson Sonsini before, his last question to me was, so when you get the money, how do I know you're not going to run out of the country? And again, we may feel that we know who they are, right? It's Chris Ye. I can pick up his book. I can see him. But he doesn't know Anita Gardyne. Mm-hmm. He's getting 999,000 emails a day. So again, entrepreneurs, be resilient. If there's a target, and once you suss out who that target is for you, every company is not going to be your target. Even if you sell something that, a printer, I'm not picking on printers. If you sell a service where there are a lot of competitors who may look in terms of your service offering, you get it, right, Christine?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's who are your, I'm on this kick right now around, so for me, negotiation it's a conversation about a relationship, but it's also not about the content that you sell or that you buy or the content in the contract. Though in my class, I demystify contracts for business people. It's like, you don't need a lawyer to do a lot of this stuff. And so, but the thing is that it's a process. And your negotiation starts with your marketing. It starts with your marketing. That is your first going out position, is in your marketing. And so I've been starting to talk about that, and how, the negotiation process is from marketing all the way through to renegotiation. Because if you have a relationship, like you've been married for over 30 years, I've been married for almost 30 years. And guess what? The deal I entered into when my husband and I got married is not entirely the same deal I have today. Right? We're not the same human beings. We've grown. We've each changed. We're in different positions in our lives. Stuff has happened. I mean, just all sorts of things have changed. And so a successful marriage is about constant renegotiation, but so too should a successful business relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to the long-term marriage, my husband has joined as my co-founder, and he's our chief technology officer, head of product. He also hired or used his own attorney to negotiate his employment contract when he joined Oneva. And I did the same thing. What? We've been married 30 years at that point, and you're going to use an attorney? He's like, yeah, buddy, I know you. No, no, joking aside. But again, what does that convey to my potential customers? What does that convey to my potential investors? Yes, this is my husband of 30 years. This is an employee with his own employee agreement that he negotiated. That says we're about business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and there's so many husband-wife teams out there working who get these types of questions. Well, tell me, how does this relationship work? Well, there's a legal answer, right? I'm the owner, he's an employee. And then there's this, how do we work together answer?
Mm-hmm.
You were just dropping so many gems here. I just had to come back and point that one out. We got a lot of husband and wife founders out there.
Oh, yes, we do.
Wife couples out there. And it's very different. As you pointed out, what happens here and what happens in that business arena.
Yeah, it's got to be, that has to be separated. I mean, it shows the level of professionalism and seriousness that, and may I say, the care that you show toward your business as well as toward your relationship. Because when you are in partnership with anybody from your family, whether it's your parents, your siblings, your spouse, whatever, having clear boundaries of what that relationship looks like and clearly articulated expectations will save you so much in terms of drama and trauma that you could even imagine. And so hats off to you. So,
well, no, I didn't think we were successful at it, because that's a big negotiation. And I will tell any founder listening, this is the most important negotiation that I have in my life, is that negotiation with my husband, who's head of product and CTO at the moment of scale. That's very different for him to have been a VP at a different in his last X roles and come in and now work for his wife. That's a negotiation and
absolutely
boundaries. I'm not there yet. I am a work in progress, because I will sit in bed until all hours with the laptop, and it's like, nope, it's a bedroom, not an office. So I'm learning boundaries, and I just wanted to highlight that as the biggest negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
I say that because when we have our reviews with Chris Ye and our elders, talk about business on a quarterly basis, first question out of Mr. Ye's mouth is, how are you and Bob doing? We're doing great. If Bob and I aren't functioning as a team,
yeah, absolutely,
that speaks to the likelihood of success of the company. So again, founders, whether your sisters, two BFFs, right, bare slate, two great female founders, best friends, you just have to be real clear and negotiate those roles, because what happens personally very different than what happens professionally. To me, that is so much more complex than anything I ever had to negotiate with Fred or the investment bankers, right?
Absolutely. Well, to everybody who's stayed tuned in, whether you're watching on our YouTube channel or you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, we are just so excited and so honored that you have stayed with us through this episode. There has been a lot of great information that has come out of this one. Again, if you go to venn.zone, VENN.zone, you can get a full transcripts of the show notes. I have a gift waiting there for you too, if you go check that out. And until next time, happy negotiating, everyone. And just remember, negotiation is a conversation about a relationship, and you cannot win a relationship, but you can get more value out of it. Until next time, thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks, Anita.
Thank you, Christine. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thank you. Great lessons, Christine. You are amazing.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of In the Ven Zone with Christine McKay. We invite you to visit our website at www.ven.zone to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Empower the negotiator in you and successfully level the playing field. Join us again next time here on In the Ven Zone.